The days of bulldog leadership and Wolf of Wall Street sales floors are a thing of the past, and workplaces will continue to morph as Gen Z will make up 30% of the workforce by 2030. Jeremy Boudinet, the VP of Growth at Textla, joins us next on Coach's Corner to share strategies and best practices for recruiting and retaining Gen Z talent. I'm super excited to introduce our next guest on Coach's Corner, Jeremy Boudinet, the VP of Growth at Textla. Jeremy, how are you doing today?
Brian, I'm doing great, man. Living the dream down here in South Florida. How are you?
Another day, another dollar in Nashville, Tennessee. It's like 98 degrees outside. Just finished up. Yeah, just finished up about an hour and a half of Olympics nonstop, and we're hanging in there, man. Speaking of that, let's jump in, man. Jeremy, want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about Textla.
All right, Jeremy Boudinet, VP of Growth at Textla. We're a business texting platform. We're the easiest to use, best priced business texting platform on the planet. Companies use us to text their customers, their prospects, send bulk texts. You can two-way text people. We're extremely affordable. We're built for small businesses, but we do have some, I would say, high growth and mid-market companies using us too. So if you're looking to text your customers, if you want to get in the DMs, come talk to us. We're growing like crazy. So I've been with Textla for about 6-7 months. Have about 10 years of startup and marketing and sales experience. I actually got my start at Ambition about 10 years ago. I went to college with the co-founders, and in college I was known for writing papers for people for money, Brian. So I had the Boudinet guarantee, an A or B or your money back. So, fast forward, I graduated from law school, decided I don't want to be a lawyer, and Ambition came calling, and that was it. I found myself in marketing. So, lots of marketing experience. I've managed teams. I've been a solo marketer. I've worked at unicorns. I've worked at, pre-Series A startups and all that good stuff. But I really love the topic of really motivating talent and, getting the most out of your team. And that's sort of been a core theme in my career ever since I got started, with Ambition back in the days.
I think today's topic, how to recruit and retain Gen Z talent, is really something that a lot of people leaders need to be thinking more and more about. To kind of frame up the conversation, I was looking at some stuff online, and when we look at just some labor statistics, right, Gen Z is going to make up 30% of the U.S. workforce by 2030. So it's going to be 1 out of every 3 people that you work with essentially is going to kind of be this type of person. And I think it's really important, especially us as sales leaders and managers, to understand the people that we work for. You know what I mean? I'm a big believer. I work for, the people that I manage. So I'm excited to hear, especially some of your experiences at larger companies, smaller companies. I think you're going to have some really good insight into some of the best practices here. So with that being said, man, I'm curious, what unique qualities and values does Gen Z bring to the workplace, and how can employers leverage these to create a more dynamic and innovative work environment?
Yeah, great opening question, man. So I think there are actually hidden values that they bring and hidden qualities that they bring. It's not the ones that get talked about a lot, but I've seen it firsthand. So my first hidden quality that I love about Gen Z, there are a lot of disaffected Gen Zs. There are a lot of Gen Zs who kind of have been already experienced some frustrating life experiences. If you think about a lot of these guys, it was COVID lockdowns. They couldn't go to college. They couldn't go to classes. They, were forced to stay home. They, really kind of got discombobulated very early into entering the workforce. It reminds me of, I'm a millennial, when my graduating class came out in 2009, very similar. It was like the American dream got crushed right in front of us, with the Great Recession and all that stuff. I think Gen Z is in the same place. So the cool thing is that companies have an opportunity to give Gen Z's opportunity and finally present them with like, yo, you've been screwed over, in so many ways, in the last 4 years. Here's a chance for you to really come out, make something of yourself, seize advantage of the opportunity, and control your own destiny. you know so I think the disaffected ones I've talked to are really looking for something to believe in. They're looking for a place that actually provides them with like real value, because for them, a lot of them, college didn't do that. So they were stuck in their dorm rooms, they were attending classes via Zoom. So having like managers that actually care about them, having like companies that really, want to invest in them and help them grow, and presenting them with, really big financial opportunities, especially in sales, which is a great opportunity for anyone in their early to mid 20s. You can really come out and control your own destiny and change your life's course. So I think playing on that disaffection, really like playing on that whole frustration with what they've experienced thus far and giving them a lifeline, I've seen them respond to that really, really well. And I think a lot of them are also more entrepreneurial uh, in terms of their mindset. They see creators getting very successful in a really entrepreneurial way. They, see friends do startups. So presenting them with like an entrepreneurial sort of, experience inside of a company, an entrepreneurial experience, I guess is what you call it. I think a lot of them will respond to that. So those are probably the big things I would say that they bring. And I think if companies can co-opt that, it's going to be great for the company and great for the employee as well.
Yeah, it's like, I think about family members of mine, just like you graduate college and one, you didn't have a graduation ceremony. Two, you weren't able to celebrate. Three, once you left, you couldn't get a job and you're just kind of in the ether. And I think a lot of people just want to have a sense of community. And if like really cool organizations can offer these people opportunities to be a part of something that they have never been a part of yet, I think you can find some really special people, and the entrepreneurial mind for sure.
Yeah.
I think the Gen Zers is really kind of the first subset that have always had the internet. They've not like they don't know anything but it. So just from day one, they know how to harness some of the things that maybe we don't. Um, but let's dig in a little more. Let's talk about actually like finding these people. What are some of the more effective strategies for attracting Gen Z candidates during the recruitment process? And then are there specific platforms or approaches that resonate more with this generation?
Yeah, I love this question. So, we've developed a strategy for recruiting them at Textla that is working so well, and I'm going to share it with you guys today. So, number one, you want to zig instead of zag. So, or zig while others are zagging, I should say. So, our first thing we did at Textla when we sent out offers to like these college kids we were recruiting is we wanted to scare them. We wanted to scare them with how hard it was going to be to work at Textla. We made working at Textla sound like you were joining the Marines. We like literally were just overemphasizing this is going to be so hard. You're going to like want to quit. This is not some cushy gig. Like this is not for most people. Most people can't handle this. And then what we offered alongside that was we promised meritocracy. We promised they'd be valued for the performance they brought and the results they delivered. And then we promised financial upside. So, the ability, again, to control your own destiny, to have that sort of entrepreneurial vibe around you. And then we sold them on our purpose too. Like we have a very strong purpose here at the company. We know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And you're going to be a part of that. And like you're a key part of that, to be honest. But that combination of things does a couple things. One, it weeds out the weaker candidates, I would say, because I've managed some Gen Zs who honestly like fell into that sort of stereotype we sometimes hear where they don't make eye contact or they're not trying to work that hard or you know, they're kind of checked out already. And you want to like remove those people from, your recruitment process as fast as possible. A good way to do that is to oversell on how hard it's going to be. And then number two is when you promise the meritocracy and financial upside, well, they haven't like really experienced that in their lives, a lot of them. The meritocracy they're promised didn't really get delivered. They have college degrees that they feel like are half them feel like are worthless. They're in a job market that sucks and is very hard to crack into. So this is a lifeline that's like, you're not just gonna have a job, you're gonna have a job that actually gives you like the road to financial freedom. And then purpose, you're like in the trenches with people who actually love what they're doing, work very hard, and take care of each other. So all those are like foreign things to them. So if you get those people who are attracted to that and you bring them in your organization, you've done half the battle, which is recruiting the people with the right mindset in the organization. And at that point, it's just a matter of retaining them and maximizing their potential.
Yeah, I think like overselling it and just being brutally honest is just really powerful, especially recruiting, younger folks. Like I remember the first time I started an SDR job, I didn't actually know what I was doing until day one. I got the bait and switch, and I'm like, what? Cold calling? What am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, I think people really value upfront transparency, even if it's, harder to hear, because they know from this step one, oh yeah, I want to be a part of a company that has values like that and is, has some pride and is going to be challenging, or maybe I don't. It's really valuable to the business and to the job market. Um, Company culture though, like that's a really big thing. A couple other stats I was looking at before this, like 77% of Gen Zers prioritize work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
72% of them are more likely to have either left or considered leaving a job if their employer didn't offer a flexible work policy. How important, Jeremy, are company culture and values to Gen Z employees, and what steps can companies take to ensure they align with these expectations?
I love this question. I'm really gonna kind of come at it from a different angle. So, and those stats are like that you shared are actually terrifying to me, but they make sense. So, I've worked at companies. Let me preface this by saying I've worked at companies that catered to that mindset, and frankly, resulted in a lot of those Gen Zers getting terminated because they needed to be, because the company wasn't making enough money to support having them. So it's a self-defeating sort of culture. And so I'm of the opinion that what companies need to do is, instead of kowtowing to that insistence from Gen Z, they need to establish the culture and let that culture mold Gen Zers. And here's what I recommend. So um, there's this whole team versus family sort of sense in companies. In some companies, for a long time, it was like, we're a family. And, frankly, the company I was at, where that was an issue, that was we're a family type culture. But the problem with that is family, isn't really accurate for business, because a business has one job, and that's to make a profit and grow. And it's more like a team, frankly, than a family. So I think what companies need to do is, first, they need to create a culture that crushes any sense of entitlement or enables lackadaisical performance. So, you go back to think about like the highest performing organizations, not just in business, but in anything, like Navy SEALs. I mean, do Navy SEALs, have they changed their culture to, align with Gen Z expectations? No. College football teams like, Georgia and Tennessee, are they, changing the way they practice to align with Gen Z? No, of course not. Pro sports teams, same thing. The best of the best, really create a opportunity for these young employees to come into the workplace and crush. So I think what you need to do is, I think companies, it's on them to redefine what a good culture is for Gen Z. And so I think that maybe, instead of being like, okay, like you're going to have work life balance, you get to have flexible work hours, it should be more like the be all you can be mindset. You're going to get to join a championship team, you're going to get on the path to financial freedom. discipline, hard work equals freedom, and you're going to benefit from all those things. And I think one challenge that's happened is you have a lot of people who are like millennials, maybe who are my age, who are um, saying these sort of work dynamics, and they're married and they have kids and they're in their mid 30s and they, spent their 20s working in an office and benefiting from in-person coaching, and they like flexible work hours and remote work because like they can do that now, but the difference between being 37 and doing that versus like 24 and doing that, it's a big difference. And managing remote workers, who are young and learning really the most critical functions of being professional, it's not fair to them, I think, to like give them, that much leeway because they end up a little bit lost. And you really need people either if they're not self motivated and they're not self disciplined, which I've managed some Gen Z people who were, and they were able to really thrive, at the companies I've worked at, then, they're screwed because there were other ones that I managed. And because we were remote, it was just so hard to coach them up and to really set the proper expectations for them. So that's my spiel on culture. But I don't know. What do you think, Brian? And what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out to me is the way the workforce was 10 to 15 years ago when we were getting into it. It was very militaristic, very old school, and I don't think we should go back to that. But I do believe that like when you have those foundations of work ethic and how to stay organized and be accountable and things that aren't natural for younger folks nowadays just because of the access to everything. I think you're right. We do disservice them by just starting them out of the gate with, yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want and take as much time off as you want, and you know what I mean. Like, it's got to be a balance. Like, we need to, we have to have those flexible PTO policies and accepting environments, but there's also got to be that structure that exists to set them up for success. So I couldn't
Mhm.
agree with you more. We talked a lot about finding talent, attracting talent, what they're looking for. Let's move into, all right, I'm managing some folks now, right? I'm managing Gen Z people. What are some common challenges employers face when managing Gen Z talent? And how can these be addressed to foster just better retention and better engagement?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say number one is if you can avoid going remote, avoid it. If you can't, though, there's steps you can take. So at Ubiquitous, the last company I was at, I managed a team of 6 people. It was all remote, and 3 of them were sales reps, and they were our account executives. They were our closers. So some things I did. Number one was, I watched gong calls every day for these guys. I commented, I made notes, I cheered them on, but they knew I was watching them. And I would go in, we tracked all their communication, HubSpot, and I could see who was, really putting the work in, who was really being aggressive with follow ups, who was putting forth the activity, and I could see who wasn't. And so I made it very clear to them that this was a performance based job, and I didn't really care how frankly, like how much I liked you. Even you needed to get results, and you were going to be evaluated based purely on your results. So we made that very clear from day one, and I showed them though how much I cared about them. Like, and I cared about them way outside of work. I went to, I talk on the phone, for hours with them about anything going on in their life if the situation called for it. So it's sort of that combo of like performance matters most. We're going to quantify it. We're going to track it. I mean, this is frankly where ambition I think is more valuable than ever, because you can see the performance of your reps. And then two, you combine that by also like actually giving a shit about them as people. The best boss I ever had cared about me so much as a person outside of like my performance. It was unbelievable. I'm still really good friends with him. And another boss I had actually same company at Nextiva. I'm going to go play basketball with him tomorrow. So we're still super close. So that tells you anything. But you have that combo of emphasizing performance is everything. We're tracking it, we're watching it, we're coaching you up on it. And then two, I'm a human and you're a human. I care about you as a person. I want to see you develop and grow and crush it. And that was a challenge at Ubiquitous, by the way, because we didn't have, believe it or not, we did not have commission for these guys at Ubiquitous. I fought for it super hard, but we never got it approved. But, incredibly, none of them ever churned under me, voluntarily, I should say. Our best performers all stayed. And I think it's because they knew I cared about them and they knew that I wanted to see them succeed. And I made them the utmost priority in my day. We would talk over Slack every day. We would talk on the phone every day. We would have like a team call every day over Zoom. And then, of course, I'd watch their goal and comment on them. So even though I was remote, I was very much constantly in touch with them. And if you're at a bigger org and you have more direct reports under you, that's a bit more challenging. But I think that it just goes back to make performance at the forefront and then, add the caring interpersonal, coach dynamic to it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Sometimes I think people leaders want to rely on an organization or rely on structure, rely on platforms and systems, but how do you create an environment that fosters retention and engagement? You do it. You are engaged. You engage your reps. You show them you care, right? It's you. It's the person. And it's easier said than done. When you're stretched in 100 different directions, but that's the key that I think I heard you say there. We're running up on time. One last quick little question I think is I'm always curious how can organizations really create development and growth opportunities to help retain Gen Z talent? Having a great manager is the key thing, but are there other things that companies can do that Gen Zers want to stick around for and want to see out?
Yeah, great question. So I think any company that really hammers home like a team-based ethos and a meritocracy based ethos and a strong mission is going to be appealing to Gen Z. And maybe not to all Gen Z, but to the high performers, to the right people, who are really going to help your organization succeed. I would say companies should not fall into the trap of letting their culture sort of be bogged down by the C players. And what I mean by that is that they shouldn't, you know, make it more of a family based ethos or be more lackadaisical because, well, that's what these sort of, middling performers want. I think they really need to, as hardcore as it sounds, really base their culture around how do we maintain those top 25% of performers? How do we keep those top performers happy? Because at the end of the day, your top performers are who matter most. And you want to move your middle performers up to the top. But a way to do that is to make meritocracy so important and to create FOMO and to have these people be like, well, I want to have the same, I want to be recognized the same way these other guys are. And I want the same opportunities and career growth that these guys are. And the way to do that, if you tell them it's to, put the work in, it's to, be self-directed with coaching. I mean, Gen Z is great with tech. They can do we shot a video at Textla with a camera that was production quality because our CEO knew how to do it on his own, which was crazy to me. We saved thousands of dollars.
Man, those are definitely that's some wisdom. Those are some hacks. Those are whatever you want to call it. I couldn't agree more because I've seen it. I've seen it here. I've seen it in a few other organizations. That is the key. Jeremy, it's been awesome. Appreciate you hanging out with us.